Welcome to Wedding BFF. My name is Kate Schmidt and I am your host. As a self-taught wedding planner and owner and chief planner for Celebrate by Kait, I am passionate about creating wedding days that are memorable and tangibly feel like the couple that is being celebrated. On this podcast, you will hear from myself and other guests tips on planning, mindfully creating a day that not only looks but feels good, and how to budget your way to the wedding day of your dreams. Now let's get to discussing your day, your way. Hey everyone, it's Kate. Looking forward to talking today about 5 big questions to ask your venue. And when I say questions, more so thinking about the elements that you need to consider when you're booking your venue. I've heard from couples time and time again that booking their venue is sometimes the most difficult part, and it's because there's so many moving pieces. And my go-to punchline during consultations is, well, if you haven't been married before, you didn't exactly have an economics or civics class or something in high school to tell you how to do it. So that's where I come in. There's lots of lingo within the industry, and one of the things I'm really passionate about is discerning that for my clients and making it easier. So as I concluded a venue search with one of my clients recently, I thought I should talk about some of those considerations and demystify the venue search. So here are 5 things for you today. All right, number 1, minimums and service charges. You need to look at what your minimum spend is going to be. A minimum can be defined as specifically food and beverage based or just bar based. It really depends on the venue and what they provide, but that is when you walk in the door, the minimum you're going to spend on food and beverage, and that does not include your rental, which is another consideration. So the key costs to look into are the minimum, the service charge, which I will get into, as well as what different fees are in place and what it costs to rent out the venue itself. On the end of service charges, those have definitely increased over the years, and it does not make it any easier. However, they are very much important to make a venue run. So that goes towards their staff. I don't know the specific allocations. I'm not going to make any assumptions either because I've heard a lot of different breakdowns of where that money goes. But essentially, if you are in Midwest or specifically Milwaukee, Madison area, you're going to expect anywhere from 20 to 24%. I haven't seen higher than 24% recently, but I've seen more. The median right now is 22. And it really varies on the type of venue and what they do provide to you. So I look at it as a tip. I look at it as staffing. You go to a restaurant, you tip 20%, or I hope you do. And it's something similar, especially when you're having that plated meal, white glove experience. That's what that's going to cover. But it is very important that you're calculating that when you're doing your financials prior to signing a contract, because you want to know what you're working with. And to that end, one more tangent for point number 1 is looking into the sales tax in your area. For example, Milwaukee County is getting a much larger sales tax in 2024. I have clients looking in 2025 as well. It's a huge consideration. We had pretty reasonable sales tax, I would say 5.5% for most goods and 6% for food and beverage. It was a luxury. Now I'm realizing as it's going to go up to 7.9 and 8.4% respectively in 2024, and who knows where it'll go from there. It's been a luxury for a while, but it's something we're dealing with, and that is, look at 3%. If you're spending, the average wedding around here, I would say is 50, 60, 70, 80,000. If you're spending that, that's a pretty penny. So be observant as that as well. Do not forget to calculate your tax, and that is set by your municipality. That is not set by the venue itself. Kind of a side note that I turned into a long tangent. All right, number 2, fees. So those can be kind of hidden. There's your rental fee, which is very standard in the industry depending on what kind of venue you're working with. But essentially, in Milwaukee County, for example, you're going to see anywhere from $3,000 to $15,000, pretty wide range. It's really going to depend on where you are, what they're providing, and different things of that nature. But along those lines, with those fees, there can be bartender fees. How many bartenders do they provide in their rental fee? I've seen 1 per 50 provided. They provide 2 automatically. So if you have 150, 200 guests, you have 2 more that you're going to have to provide on your own time. What does that fee look like? Is it hourly? Is it a flat fee? Flat fees are obviously ideal because you know what you're going into. Hourly can add up very quickly. I've seen $150 for that fee. I've seen $50 an hour for that fee. That's something you want to ask about because all venues that are worthwhile to me have some type of bar already included. And even if it's a non-alcoholic situation, there's got to be a way to, stay hydrated and get your beverages. Other fees to consider: security. It depends on where your location is. If it's more downtown metropolitan, you're probably going to have a security fee. There might be a coat check fee. There might be fees for a room flip. Actually, that's very common that there's a ceremony fee now. And to give you reference, this is November 29th, 2023. Those room fees, or I should say ceremony fees, are starting at $500 and going up to about $2,000, $2,500, depending on what your venue is. So that is on top of your room rental. I hope I'm not overwhelming you right now, but talking about the money and economics of the wedding world is something I think is really important as you educate yourself. And if you are in the shoes of trying to find your venue, we need spreadsheets, okay? And I have templates online where I can help and build that to your custom on Etsy. Cake cutting is one other fee, and I will leave it at that. Mic drop. One of the other things to look into is inclusion. So it can be very misleading when you're walking into this gorgeous venue that's downtown. It has the windows, it has, I don't know, the beautiful modern fixtures. It has space for 300, so you can fit your 200 people in there easily. There's a lot that's sexy about these venues. That's why they're in business. But what you need to think about is what's included with that rental fee. So going back to the kind of the mother fee, if you will, what is included with that rental fee? I've seen a variety of things. Linens particularly are very expensive. Is your venue providing those? If your venue is not providing those, you got to have a couple grand set aside for that, depending on how many tables you have. It adds up very quickly. If your venue is not providing it, is your caterer providing it? If your caterer is providing it, how much of a markup do they have? And no shade, because we all have to have markups to survive, especially in this economy in 2023. But it gets very pricey very quickly. And if you want to go into specialty linens, that's a whole nother issue. And I've worked with some wonderful vendors for that, but linens is one thing for an inclusion you really need to think about. Second is chairs. Chivalry chairs, we love them. You've seen them on a million weddings. They are not cheap. They are around $9 to $11 each if you want to rent those. Does your venue already have those? Is it the look that you're looking for? Or do you want a ghost chair? Do you want a chair that is, like a wooden vintage chair? Do you want that to rent that out? Give it more of an eclectic look? It's up to you. But chairs are not always included. Or the chair that you want is not always included. It might be an ugly banquet chair. I'm just saying. If you want to do chair covers, you can. If you want to do chivalry chairs, you can. What I will say about chairs is it's noticed, but it's not. People are sitting in that chair for about, 10, 20% of the night if you have an efficient dinner service. And it's important to think about that, but also what moves the needle, which I will focus on in a different episode on budgeting priorities. Along with those inclusions, is there going to be a venue manager there that day? Which I will scream from the rooftops is not the same thing as a day of coordinator. And a lot of venues are selling it like that right now. That is their prerogative. However, is there going to be a venue manager on site? Is that the person you've been talking to this entire time? Or is it going to be a new person that's assigned to you about a month out from your wedding? Important things to ask. Other inclusions, going into my next point, which is number 4, is parking. Is there a parking lot nearby? Is there street parking? Do you need to rent a parking lot? If there's parking nearby, great. I would consider that an inclusion, just an added bonus. Is there a get ready suite? I'm going to do another episode specifically talking about bridal get ready and the importance of that space and actually reading the fine print, because most bridal suites in Metro Milwaukee are not available at 7 in the morning when your makeup artist needs to get in. Most of the time you're going to need to actually rent out extra hours for that. So if it's you get in at noon, well, great. I should have my makeup done by then. And most timelines that I've ever run, your makeup should be done by then. That is something to consider. How many hours are included? And what kind of support are you going to get from their staff? Usually that's listed on there too, amongst other things. Parking we talked about. So this can be interesting, and you have to think about your crowd. So you might be used to Metro Milwaukee, or you might be used to a metropolitan area, street parking and different things, busier areas, whatever that may be. Your guests may be from Timbuktu. They may not do very well with that. So is it a consideration of, do we need to spend money on transportation? Do we need to rent out a specific lot that's nearby? So it's a little bit easier on our guests. It's a cultural standpoint from kind of just the psychographics of it all, of how will they do if they're downtown Milwaukee on a Saturday night? Will they be comfortable, or are they Ubering? Is that their mode of transportation? Are they all flying in? to finish that up, it's important to look into the parking settings and what your options are. And also, are you working with an external party to book that parking lot? Are you getting a discount through your venue? Is there a parking garage nearby that you can negotiate with? Lots of things to work with. The good news in Milwaukee is that on Saturday night, street parking is free. And the last thing, vendor freedom. Okay, I have been in what feels like a million venues thus far. Not true. But I've seen so many things. Preferred vendor list, exclusive vendor list. This applies a lot to caterers. But do you want to be limited to a preferred list, or do you want your pick of the litter, if you will? That's something to consider. There's certain venues that only have specific day of coordinators. So, I would love to get my name in the hat, but if that's not the case right now, I don't see myself being there anytime soon. And another thing to consider with vendor freedom is on the venue's side, in their defense, if you will, it is very important to understand why they have their preferred vendors. Quite honestly, there might be kickbacks involved, which go you. If you can figure that out, I have nothing against that type of commerce, as long as the quality is there for your clients. So a lot of time, the preferred vendor or exclusive vendor list is in place to protect the venue and protect the experience that they want to provide to you and your guests. If they have worked with this DJ 10 times at this venue, know how they work, it's like clockwork, that is so much better than trying to get acquainted with someone new, potentially, who hasn't been to that venue, doesn't understand the specs, doesn't understand what kind of speakers they need, if it's challenging to get in with their heavy equipment, a load in, load out situation, what those hours are. There's many reasons that I would quite honestly advocate for that preferred or exclusive list from the venue's perspective. And I'm not on the venue side, that's not how I operate. I operate as the contractor who puts it all together with all the other vendors. But think about it this way, they want the quality to maintain. So that is why a lot of times they're preferred or exclusive lists. Some do not have, any restrictions whatsoever. Who it's going to apply to really is your caterer, sometimes your DJ, specifically, or DJ or photo booth, things like that. Sometimes it does apply to day of coordinators just like me, or wedding planners, and various other vendors. Those are the big ones where I see exclusive or preferred lists. Any venue can have a preferred list. I'm on a preferred list for a venue in South Milwaukee that I adore. But where does your freedom come in with that? If you're really passionate about a specific type of food, can those caterers deliver that? And again, catering, I feel like, is the biggest stepping stone with that. To summarize all of these points, I hope this was helpful as you are working through booking your venue and what's important. I would say the priorities go like this. The first one, looking at your minimums, rentals, and service charge. The second one is looking at the fees. Are those stacking up really quickly? Are those a little ridiculous and you're paying for a dance floor flip? I've seen that a lot recently. In this economy, a lot of people are doing that. The third one, what is included? Do we get chairs? And more importantly, do we get shower chairs? Not that I am partial to it, but I am 110% partial to it. And do you get linens, or am I paying my caterer for my linens? That is an incremental cost to consider. Parking, is it easy? Do you have to pay extra to reserve a specific lot? Is it through the venue? Is it through another venue or a vendor? Is it not guaranteed? Those are things to think about. And finally, vendor freedom. Are you stuck to a list of 5 caterers, or is there a preferred list of caterers? Is there an exclusive list for day of coordinators or DJs or other venues, and those are the only people you work with? Or is it open season and you can choose whoever you want and whoever aligns with the type of day you want to create? So that's it for now. Kind of a quickie today, but if you are looking at a wedding venue, these are the top 5 things I would consider. I phrased them as questions at the beginning, but really they're 5 factors that are going to determine your bottom line in a lot of ways for your wedding day. All right, thank you so much. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Thanks for listening. I'm thrilled that you joined us today. Feel free to check out CBK on Instagram at Celebrate by Kait, spelled CELEBRAIT, by, and my name Kait, Kait, as well as various other online channels where we share our sparkle with the world. Thanks again for joining your wedding BFF. Cheers to your day, your way.